Good afternoon and welcome to Dialed In. I'm Alex Colon, this is Sasha Segan, and you are watching PC Mag's weekly show about mobile phones and technology. If you have any questions about the things that we're talking about today, and you're watching live on Facebook, feel free to leave a comment. Social people read it out and we'll do our best to answer it. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, leave a comment below. Please like and subscribe. And you can see that today, what we're going to get to at the end of the show, if you want to flip it open, there you go. We have a couple of new flip phones to show you, and believe it or not, they are indeed new.
And they're not all flips. I mean, I refer to this category as voice phones because it's not about the shape, it's about what it does.
Right. Yeah, so these two on the end, these are not flip phones, but they all have an equally limited feature set, and we will get to why people might want that later in the show.
Yeah, and I think there are people who do want that, and if any of them are you, let's talk about it.
So let's start with our first story this week. And this is a big rumor that was making the rounds yesterday, that the iPhone X might be discontinued this summer. Now, who said this? Why are they thinking this? And do you think it's true?
Okay, so this is one of those Wall Street analyst stories where a Wall Street analyst speculates about something,
right,
and it kind of metastasizes through the internet and becomes a this is going to happen, but it's just this one guy speculating about something. His name is Ming-Chi Kuo. He works for KGI Securities. He's a Wall Street analyst. But his basic idea is not implausible, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. And he said that the iPhone X isn't selling well, so they're going to kill it. And that's not what I think is going to happen. Apple currently has two tiers right now. They have the 10,
right,
and then they have the 8 and 7 and below. And they're kind of on different planets. And so when they replace the 10 with the 11, they can't bump the 10 down, because then it will start to, its price may get too close to the 9, to the upcoming 9, or whatever, the 8S, or whatever. They need to maintain a differentiation between the 8 line and the 10 line. So if they can't make the 10 cheaper because it would kind of collide with the 8S, and they want to release an 11,
right,
then it makes sense that the 10 would go off the market when they release the 11.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's, I mean, when you say discontinue, that kind of gives you a different idea. Like,
Exactly.
They're just going to stop selling it in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's going to disappear. You won't be able to buy one in June. That's not what is going to happen. Probably.
No, like what I suspect is going to happen is that they're going to have their new announcement in September, October, when they usually do. And that announcement will consist of, we're going to have we're announcing the 8S, and so we bump the 8 down $100, we bump 7 down $100, we bump 6S down $100.
Right.
And then we're also going to have our new flagship, the 11. And at that point, the Apple Store goes offline, and when it comes back online, they're not selling the 10, they're selling the 11.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that does seem fairly plausible.
Yeah, I mean, it seems plausible, but that word discontinued makes it sound like the 10 is like a horrible failure, and I don't think that's what's really going on.
Even anecdotally, I'm seeing more and more of them on the subway every day.
I know, me too. And I know that New York City is kind of a high-income area, like Manhattan is a high-income place. But among this high-income crowd, I am definitely seeing a lot of iPhone Xs in the wild.
All right, let's move on to our next story. This is another rumor story, but this is a fun one because we have photos.
Yes.
We might be seeing, this might be the entire leaked Moto lineup for this year.
Yeah, Kellen at Droid Life did this before with last year's Moto lineup, and was correct. So I think this is a pretty reliable one that Droid Life leaked the Z3, the X5, the G6. So here we have your Z3. Notice that it's got kind of the Samsung Infinity display thing going on.
Right.
And that's so they can get a bigger display without changing the rear size of the phone so the Moto mods can still snap on.
Right.
So so they've got that going on. We have a virtual home button down here. No visible fingerprint sensor. That's an interesting play. And then Droid Life also got this picture of a 5G Moto mod. Now, last year, they had been, they kind of threw out that might be a thing that happens, and it looks like it's a thing they're really working on.
So, I mean, one good thing, if this is true, is that they aren't abandoning the Moto mods.
No, they are definitely in on the Moto mods. At CES, we saw the keyboard Moto mod, we saw the health tracker Moto mod. Definitely Motorola is sticking with the Moto mod concept. Now, going over to the Moto X5 here, what makes the Moto X5 interesting, and why is there no picture of the Moto X5 on this page? I guess the page just didn't load properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's pictures on this page. The Moto X5, here, I'm gonna try to reload the page and see if I can get us that image. There we go.
And it's gone again.
Went away again. Okay, well, the image disappeared, but so the Moto X5, dual front and rear cameras, and a kind of iPhone-like screen notch. So that's interesting.
Right.
And then we go to the Moto G6, and you have now the G6 Plus, dual cameras, kind of a 3D glass effect on the front, and a big camera disc. And I'm a little uncomfortable with that, with the sharpness and the thickness of that camera disc on the back. They're clearly trying to cut down on the G series thickness, but that's going to be it's quite a bump there on the back.
So what is your problem with the bump out?
It's sharp and it's going to catch on things. I'm worried it's going to catch on people's pockets. I'm worried it's going to catch on the edges of things, and then it's going to either get caught, or it's going to fray your pants, or it's going to chip around the edges of that hard bump.
Right. So if these are indeed the phones that we'll be seeing later this year, what are your initial thoughts?
So my initial thoughts are that X5, dual front and rear cameras. That's such a cool concept. Like, we've been seeing dual fronts some places, we've seen dual rear some places. Like, I think that is really cool. The G's look solid. Moto's G's always look solid. And if they can get 5G into the Z before any other phone, that gives them a really cool selling point. The question I have, I just wonder though, Moto creates relentlessly good phones. They use basically stock Android. Their hardware has been good year after year, but they just can't seem to get traction in the US marketplace except for the unlocked Gs. And I wonder why.
Yeah, I am not seeing many Moto mods on the subway.
I'm not seeing Moto mods on the subway. I'm seeing Gs from time to time.
Right.
I'm seeing Gs running on the kinds of weird MVNO carriers that we get on the subways in Queens. But the Zs, I am not seeing a lot of those in the wild, and it may just be that they're, choked out by how heavy Samsung Apple salesmanship is in the Verizon stores.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next story. This one is a little bit of news about Android 8.0, and it can tell you the speed of the Wi-Fi network that you're using.
Yeah, this is Android 8.1.
Oh, sorry, 8.1.
Okay, and so what's going to happen in Android 8.1 is, and this is starting to roll out now, is that on a list of open Wi-Fi networks, it'll say whether the Wi-Fi is slow, okay, fast, or very fast, based on the experiences of other people who have been using that network.
Right.
It'll only work with open networks. It'll only work on Android 8.1. It'll appear in the Wi-Fi network selector list. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that is, it'll help people who do rely a lot on public Wi-Fi to know, oh, am I going to get a frustrating experience here? It makes me think of like the countdown clocks for trains.
Right.
Like on a train platform where you don't have a countdown clock, sometimes you get very frustrated because you're like, when is this coming? I have no idea. And if there's a countdown clock, even if it says 12 minutes, you're like, okay, I can prepare.
Now, do you think this could have the opposite effect, that everyone sees the good network and then they all jump on that? And then suddenly that's the slow one?
The question is whether, there's a lot of questions around this feature, and one of the questions that I don't have an answer for is Google going to dynamically update this? If a lot of people crash the fast network, is it then going to show up as a slow network in the future?
We have a question.
Do you prefer iPhone 10 or S8 Plus?
I don't prefer the S8 Plus. My personal phone is a Samsung Galaxy S8 standard size.
If we're talking preferences, you can see Sasha's using a Galaxy, I'm using an iPhone.
Yep.
But as far as PC Mag's opinion, we rate Apple phones and Android phones
Separately.
And the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy S8 have both earned our Editor's Choice Awards.
Yes, but not the S8 Plus, the S8. So I think this is a really useful feature in 8.1. The real question then is anyone going to get 8.1 other than people with Pixels ever? Like, if you have a Pixel, you'll get 8.1. But like, do we start considering these just Google Pixel features? You know?
Well, I imagine the Galaxy S9 and whatever new phones we'll see, those will probably be running 8.1.
Yeah. When we see the Galaxy S9 at Mobile World Congress, and yes, there's almost 100% chance the Galaxy S9 is coming to Mobile World Congress, that's when we're going to start seeing phones being preloaded with 8.1.
All right, now let's move on to the phones that are right here in front of us.
Yes.
So you've been reviewing these over the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
I basically just finished editing the roundup that we're doing with these phones. Now, the reason that we started reviewing them is because we're working on a feature called the Best Phones for Seniors. Now, you don't necessarily call these or consider these senior phones, though.
Yeah, because I don't feel like I don't feel like declaring an age category is the same thing as declaring someone's taste or desire for features. Like, the reason we have to call it the best phones for seniors is because of search engine optimization. And you can go Google what search engine optimization is. It helps pay the bills around here. But what these really, I mean, there are 85-year-old computer scientists who are, crazy about their stock Android phones. There are 35-year-old Luddites who don't want to be pinged as online all the time.
Right.
So what these are really are voice phones. And they are simple to use, simple user interface, simple function phones for people who prioritize voice calling.
Right. So let's go over each of the phones that we have in front of us. So we have two flips, and then we have two
bars.
Two bars.
And so, so the two flips here are both on Verizon. And so now, when I was looking at voice phones, I had a couple of priorities. One of the priorities was that I want my voice phone to be under $200. There are some awesome flip phones out there made by Kyocera that are very tough and have a lot of great features. They're really expensive for voice phones. They're over $200, and I feel like not a lot of people are buying a voice phone over $200 right now.
Right.
Also, if possible, I want my voice phone to have LTE. And this is important because all of our US carriers right now are only building LTE networks now. The 2G, 3G networks are fading into the past, and they're not going to be turned off for a couple of years now. But they may not be repaired as promptly. They're not going to expand. All the new coverage that you see, all the new low-band coverage is coming on LTE. So if you can get a phone that has voice over LTE, it probably also has Wi-Fi calling. You'll have significantly better coverage and
Better call quality.
Yeah, better call quality because voice over LTE has HD voice. So you'll have significantly better coverage, call quality, reception than you do with a 2G or 3G only phone. So we looked at some of the new LTE voice phones from all the carriers. These two are from Verizon. This here is the LG Exalt LTE. And this is the one I like slightly less. And I like it slightly less for a very obvious reason.
Now, I can't even remember. I mean, I used to review plenty of simple phones like back in 2011.
Yeah.
I really don't remember coming across any that didn't have the external screen.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, this phone has no external display. So it's a flip phone where you don't, like it's a flip phone for people who like surprise parties, You don't know who's calling until you open it up. Now, you can set custom ringtones for all of your contacts.
Right.
And you can set it so that when you flip it open, you see who's calling and choose to accept or reject the call. But for me, one of the major advantages of a flip phone is that you can see who's calling before you open the phone. So I don't know what LG was thinking here.
That's a bizarre design
Yeah, it's a
choice.
weird design choice. So the one we prefer here is the Kyocera Cadence. And this is a simple voice phone with simple features, simple functionality, and a simple $120 price. Now, it has a 2-megapixel camera on it. The camera is awful.
To be clear, though, the camera on all of these phones.
All of these phones have awful cameras. All these phones have hideous cameras, okay? This camera does not even do video. But you can see you have a nice little external display. It'll give you your caller ID. It has good long battery life. I think we got about 9 hours of talk time on it. It has a headphone jack. It works fine with your Bluetooth headset, including triggering voice dialing with your Bluetooth. Nice, decent separated keypad here. It works on Verizon's, now this is an LTE only phone, and it works on Verizon's 2 primary LTE bands. It does not roam internationally. You have to kind of, at this point, you have to step up to those expensive, ruggedized Kyoceras if you want a big complement of bands and 3G fallback and international roaming. You can get those in a voice phone, but it will cost over $200. But for your basic needs, this Cadence is what I'm recommending right now. And now that's on Verizon.
Yeah, so let's move over. I think this is maybe like the 3rd or 4th version of this phone that we've reviewed. And I just think it's a really fun one.
Yeah, I really like the Snap phone. Hey, it looks like we have a question out there.
A little bit of speculation. When do you think we'll finally have phones that are just made out of a display? Like there's no other part of the phone. I guess you just use the screen
I was
for
going to
all
say,
interaction?
what other parts, like, they wouldn't have an antenna and a processor? Like, not entire, do you mean like full front display? Because Sharp's been doing that for a while now.
I would assume they mean like no buttons on the side or anything like that, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think we're more likely to get communications integrated into other things we wear, like our clothes or our glasses, you know, before something like that happens. But going back to the Snap phone. So this is like the 3rd or 4th Snap phone we've tried. It is an unlocked phone that works on the AT&T 3G and T-Mobile 2G networks. No LTE, but it does work on 2 different US networks. But it also works on all of those like cheap, weird little carriers that run on those networks. So it works on consumer cellular, and it works on ultra mobile, and it works on you know, what was it, US mobile, all the little inexpensive carriers. And as you can tell, it has this really bold, simple display, shows you what's going on. Extremely big buttons, easy to use, loudspeaker, Bluetooth, SOS button on the back that plays an alarm and calls a pre-programmed emergency contact, little flashlight, not that many other features. Technically there's a camera, but let's not even discuss that. And the only real downsides, you have a headphone jack down here. The downsides for this one would be it is a total pain to get numbers into the phone book on this. Because there's no syncing of it with anything. The Verizon phones have a cloud-based syncing solution, so that helps. But it's really difficult to get numbers into this. Texting also extremely painful. But for your basic like emergency voice use, this is a cool little phone.
And only $80.
And only $80 unlocked. So you can use it on one of those like $8 a month plans.
We have another question.
What's your opinion on the Huawei U.S. government story?
The Huawei U.S. government story. I think Huawei is being used as a scapegoat. I think that there is a lot of Sinophobia in certain elements of the Republican Party. They are picking Huawei as the enemy based on Huawei's total incompetence at setting up a U.S. organization that appears to be independent and gives people a feeling that they're paying any attention to the U.S. If more countries were banning Huawei products, I would feel more secure about this, about what the U.S. government is doing. But if the U.S. government is basically acting alone here, and you know, Australia and the U.K. and Canada and France and Israel and you know Russia are not suspicious in any way of Huawei products, you have to ask, why are we the outlier? you know.
Right, and we actually did cover this in last week's show, so if you want an even more detailed explanation, you could go check it out on YouTube.
Yep.
So let's move to our last phone here.
Yeah, so the last phone here is called the Nokia 3310 3G. This is a smaller, cuter, less sort of I'm physically handicapped looking, inexpensive 3G bar phone. Also works on those AT&T and T-Mobile networks. This one has a nice big screen. $59, so less expensive.
Right.
I didn't find the voice quality to be quite as good as on the Snap phone.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, it's a little less outrageous looking. You know, it's a little simpler. It's a little cuter. And so for that simplicity, it has a lot of the same problems the Snap phone does. It's difficult to text message. There's no way to sync contacts. You know, all of that stuff. But it is definitely, in terms of your fashion, a more possibly a more youthful look to it.
So yeah, you could call these senior phones, you could call them simple phones,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately they are voice phones because their primary function is voice calling.
Yeah, and I would say there's about 15% of the US market which is still looking for voice phones. And so as long as those people are out there, and those people are not all 80 years old, 90 years old, even if they were, we would serve them. But I want to point out that there are people who I've met in my generation who have been like, you know what, I don't want to be pinged with notifications all the time.
Right.
I want, you know, a phone where if it's really important that someone get in touch with me, they'll get in touch with me. I don't want to be totally disconnected, but I also don't want that like 960 apps throwing icons at me all the time, every day.
Right.
And like they are looking for these kinds of phones.
Any other questions out there?
We have another future tech question. Do you ever think that we would have contact lenses that can be used like smartphones?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of the in-eye display is definitely something that people are working on. It's more of a question of we don't have that kind of miniaturized display technology yet. We can't get screens that dense, and the idea of how those would be powered is very confusing.
I mean, also even the glasses that we've seen so far have not been very impressive.
Right, I think it's an idea that the display technology world is definitely aiming towards. There are a bunch of pieces that aren't in place yet. I think that is a 20 years out idea, because especially the question of how do you power them without frying people's eyeballs
Right.
is a key question. So that could be solved 20 years from now. I think we're going to have the glasses within 10 years.
Any other questions?
Well said.
All right, so these have been our simple phones. We will be publishing a roundup probably later today called the best phones for seniors. Remember, they're not just for seniors. If you're looking for a simple phone, it's also a great place to look for more information about these phones and a number of other ones that we've reviewed recently. So thank you for tuning in again to Dialed In, and we'll be back next week with some more phones, some more news, and some more rumors.